The command room fell silent as the holographic display showed the latest battle. Red markers representing human ships winked out one by one as the blue swarm of Dominion forces pushed forward. Captain James Reed watched with the others, his face hard as stone. This was the third major defeat in 2 months. Humanity was losing the war. "Turn it off," ordered Admiral Gray, her voice tired. The display vanished, leaving the room darker. "We can't keep fighting like this. Their technology is too advanced." Reed said nothing. 6 months ago, he had been a rising star in the fleet. Now he was lucky to still have a rank after the disaster at Europa. His ship had been destroyed, half his crew killed. The official report called it tactical negligence, but Reed knew better. The Dominion had weapons they hadn't seen before. No one could have predicted it. "Captain Reed," said Admiral Gray, looking directly at him, "I have a mission for you." The other officers glanced at each other. Giving Reed another command was unexpected. "The research station near Saturn has gone dark. We need someone to check for survivors and retrieve the research data. It's probably nothing. Communications get disrupted all the time these days." Reed nodded. A simple rescue mission. Not exactly glorious, but at least he'd be back in space. "Your ship will be the Thunderbolt," Admiral Gray continued. Now Reed couldn't hide his surprise. The Thunderbolt was ancient, a relic from the early days of interplanetary travel. It was scheduled for the scrapyard next month. "Admiral, with all due respect, that ship is older than most of the crew," Reed said. "It's what we can spare," Gray replied sharply. "This should be a simple in-and-out operation. You leave tomorrow." The Thunderbolt looked every bit its age. Its hull was patched in dozens of places, and the paint had faded from too many years in the harsh space environment. Inside wasn't much better. The corridors were narrow, the equipment outdated. "She's not pretty, but she's tough," said engineer Marcus Stone as he showed Reed around the engine room. These old models were built to last. Reed wasn't convinced, but he kept his doubts to himself. His new crew was a mix of rookies and veterans who, like him, had something to prove. Lieutenant Tom Wilson, the science officer, was brilliant but socially awkward. Security Chief Alex Turner had been demoted twice for fighting. Navigator Dana Morris was fresh from the academy. "We'll reach the research station in 3 days," Reed told them during the first briefing. "Keep your eyes open. The Dominion doesn't usually patrol this far into our territory, but nothing about this war has been usual lately." 2 days into the journey, Navigator Morris spotted something on the long-range sensors. "Captain, there's a small group of ships near the research station. They're not broadcasting any identification." Reed felt his stomach tighten. "Show me." The screen displayed 3 small vessels circling the station. Their design was unmistakable. Dominion scout ships. Why would they be interested in a research station? Wilson wondered aloud. "Whatever the reason, we can't let them have it," Reed decided. "But we can't fight 3 Dominion ships with the Thunderbolt. Morris, plot a course that will keep us hidden behind Saturn's rings. We'll approach from the blind side." The plan worked, at first. The Thunderbolt slipped past the Dominion scouts and docked with the research station. Reed led a small team aboard and found the situation worse than expected. The station had been attacked, and only a handful of scientists had survived by hiding in a sealed laboratory. They came without warning. One of the scientists explained as Reed's team escorted them back to the ship. "They seemed very interested in our quantum research data." "Did they get it?" Reed asked. "No, we wiped the main computers. But I saved the key findings here." The scientist patted a small data drive hanging around his neck. They were halfway back to the Thunderbolt when the alarm started blaring. "Captain," Morris's voice came through Reed's communicator. "The Dominion ships have spotted us. They're moving to block our escape route. Get everyone aboard." "Fast," Reed ordered, breaking into a run with the scientists following. By the time they reached the Thunderbolt, the Dominion ships were closing in. Reed rushed to the bridge. "Options," he demanded. "We can't outrun them. And we definitely can't outfight them, Turner reported. Wilson was studying a display of the surrounding space. There's a nebula not far from here, the Schrödinger cloud. We could try to lose them in there. That area is restricted, Morris objected. Navigation hazards. Strange readings. No one goes in there. Reed looked at the approaching enemy ships on the screen. Their weapons were already powering up. Today, we go in there. Morris, set course for the nebula. Maximum speed. The Thunderbolt shuddered as its old engines pushed to their limits. The Dominion ships followed, firing their first shots. Most missed, but one struck the ship's rear section. Damage report. Reed called out. Minor hull breach in Cargo Bay 3. Sealed automatically. Stone reported from engineering. But, Captain, these engines won't hold at this speed for long. The nebula grew larger on the view screen. A swirling mass of purple and blue gas, crackling with energy discharges. The sensors began to show distorted readings as they approached. The Dominion ships are still gaining, Turner warned. Reed gripped the arms of his command chair. Take us in. The Thunderbolt plunged into the nebula. Immediately, the ship began to shake violently. Strange lights flashed across the bridge as systems flickered on and off. I'm losing navigation. Morris shouted over the noise. These readings make no sense. Hull integrity dropping. Stone's voice crackled through the communicator. Captain, something's happening to the ship's structure. It's like it's becoming less solid. Reed watched in amazement as his hand on the chair seemed to flicker, becoming partially transparent for a split second before returning to normal. All around the bridge, crew members were experiencing the same phenomenon. Wilson, what's happening? Reed demanded. The science officer was frantically checking readings. The nebula contains some kind of quantum disturbance. It's affecting the molecular cohesion of everything inside it. We're becoming partially phased. A massive energy surge hit the ship, and all the lights went out. For several terrifying seconds, the Thunderbolt was in complete darkness. When the emergency lights came back on, everything seemed normal, except it wasn't. The Dominion ships? Reed asked. Gone from sensors, Turner replied. Either they didn't follow us in, or they didn't survive what we just went through. Reed finished. As systems came back online, the crew made a series of unsettling discoveries. The ship appeared intact, but instruments showed strange energy patterns running through the hull. And then there were the glimpses, shadowy figures seen out of the corner of the eye, vanishing when looked at directly. Voices heard in empty corridors. Captain, you need to see this. Wilson called Reed to his station. I'm detecting our hull, but it's vibrating at a quantum level. It's as if we're not fully in one reality anymore. Reed was about to respond when he felt a strange presence in his mind. Alien yet somehow familiar. It felt like the ship itself was trying to communicate with him. Take us out of the nebula, he ordered. Slowly. As the Thunderbolt emerged from the Schrödinger cloud, the crew was shocked to see a Dominion patrol ship waiting directly in their path. Weapons charge. Evasive maneuvers. Reed shouted. But before Morris could respond, something extraordinary happened. The Dominion ship fired, and its weapons passed straight through the Thunderbolt without causing any damage. What just happened? Turner asked, stunned. Reed felt the presence in his mind again, stronger now. Somehow he understood. The ship, he said quietly, it's protecting us. We've become a ghost. The bridge of the Thunderbolt was quiet as everyone stared at the view screen. The Dominion patrol ship fired again, and again its weapons passed harmlessly through their hull. How is this possible? Navigator Morris whispered, her eyes wide. Captain Reed felt the strange presence in his mind grow stronger. It wasn't exactly a voice, more like feelings and images. He somehow knew exactly what to do next. Stone, Reed called to his engineer, divert all power to weapons. Sir, Stone questioned over the comm. Shouldn't we be running? We got lucky twice, but do it now, Reed ordered, his voice firm. The Thunderbolt's ancient weapons systems powered up. On the screen, the Dominion ship was turning to pursue, not yet realizing that its attacks had failed. "Target their engine section," Reed commanded. Security Chief Turner looked doubtful, but followed orders. Weapons locked. Fire. The Thunderbolt's pulse cannons flashed. Unlike the Dominion's weapons, these shots did not pass through their target. They struck the enemy ship's engines with perfect accuracy, causing a series of explosions that rippled across its hull. "Direct hit," Turner exclaimed, surprised. "But how did we get through their shields?" Science Officer Wilson was frantically checking his instruments. "Captain, something extraordinary has happened to us. When we were in the nebula, the ship seems to have become partially phased. It exists in normal space and what I can only describe as ghost space simultaneously." Reed nodded. The presence in his mind, the ship itself, had already told him as much. "Set course for fleet headquarters," Reed ordered. "And everyone listen carefully. What happened in the nebula stays between us for now. Not a word to anyone else." Admiral Gray studied Reed with suspicious eyes across her desk. "So you're telling me you escaped 3 Dominion scout ships, rescued the research team, and destroyed a patrol vessel in the Thunderbolt?" "We got lucky," Reed replied simply. He hated lying to his superior, but he knew what would happen if he told the truth. The Thunderbolt would be taken away, studied, dissected. He could still feel the ship's consciousness linked to his own. It was afraid of that. "Lucky," Gray repeated, clearly not believing him. "Well, your luck is exactly what we need right now. The Dominion is amassing a fleet near Jupiter's moons. We need intelligence on their numbers and positions, but every scout we've sent has been detected and destroyed." She pointed to a star map. "I'm sending you here, behind their lines. It's a reconnaissance mission only. Get in, gather data, get out. Do not engage." Reed looked at the map and felt a chill. She was sending them directly into the heart of enemy territory. It should be a suicide mission. "When do we leave?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Gray answered. "And Reed, come back alive. That's an order." The Thunderbolt slipped silently through space, its hull occasionally flickering with a ghostly shimmer. Inside, the crew was tense but focused. "We're approaching the Dominion fleet," Morris reported. "Long-range sensors show at least 50 ships. Slow to minimum speed," Reed ordered. "Wilson, what's our status?" The science officer looked up from his station. "The ship is maintaining its phase state. We're effectively invisible to their sensors, but I don't know how long that will last. The effect seems to fluctuate." Reed closed his eyes briefly, connecting with the ship's consciousness. "It takes energy to maintain this state. We need to be quick." They moved closer to the Dominion fleet, recording ship positions and types. The Thunderbolt drifted between enemy vessels, completely undetected. They were so close they could see Dominion crew members through the viewports. "This is incredible," Turner whispered. "We could fire at point-blank range, and they wouldn't know what hit them." "Reconnaissance only," Reed reminded him, though the idea had crossed his mind too. Everything was going perfectly until a small Dominion scout ship suddenly changed course, heading directly toward them. "Have they spotted us?" Morris asked, panic in her voice. "No," Wilson replied, checking his instruments. "It's just a coincidence, but they're going to collide with us in 20 seconds. Evasive maneuvers," Reed ordered. Morris tried to turn the ship, but the old engines responded sluggishly. The Dominion scout continued on its collision course. "Brace for impact," Reed shouted, but instead of a crash, the impossible happened. The Dominion ship passed right through the Thunderbolt. For a brief moment, the two vessels occupied the same space, their structures overlapping. The crew watched in amazement as alien corridors and rooms became visible inside their own ship, then disappeared as the scout passed through. That shouldn't be possible," Wilson stammered. "The laws of physics don't seem to apply to us anymore," Reed finished. He felt a surge of excitement from the ship's consciousness. It was learning, adapting, growing stronger. "We have all the data we need," Reed decided. "Let's head back." The intelligence they gathered was invaluable. Admiral Gray was able to reposition the human fleet to counter the Dominion's planned attack. For the first time in months, humanity won a battle. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," Gray told Reed afterward, not asking questions about how they'd managed to get such detailed information. Word of the Thunderbolt's impossible missions began to spread. Crews on other ships whispered about the ghost ship that could appear and disappear at will. Morale throughout the fleet improved as stories circulated of the old frigate that could slip past enemy lines unseen. Reed was summoned to more reconnaissance missions, each more dangerous than the last. Each time, the Thunderbolt returned with valuable intelligence, but Reed knew they could do more. During their fourth mission, they found themselves in the perfect position, behind a Dominion command ship, completely undetected. "Captain," Turner said quietly, "one shot at their power core from this position would disable their entire fleet command structure." Reed knew the order was to observe only, but he also knew they might never get this chance again. "Prepare weapons," he ordered. "Target their main power core." The Thunderbolt fired, its weapons phasing through the command ship's shields as if they weren't there. The shot struck the power core directly, causing a cascade of explosions throughout the Dominion vessel. As alarms blared across the enemy fleet, Reed gave his next order. "Target the communication array on the secondary command ship. Fire." Another perfect hit. The Dominion ships began to move in confusion, unable to coordinate without their command structure. "Get us out of here," Reed ordered once the damage was done. The Thunderbolt slipped away, leaving chaos in its wake. By the time they returned to the human fleet, news of the Dominion command ship's mysterious destruction had already arrived. Admiral Gray was waiting for them. "I thought I gave you strict orders not to engage," she said, but there was no anger in her voice. "It was an opportunity we couldn't ignore," Reed explained. Gray nodded slowly. "Whatever happened out there has thrown the Dominion into disarray. Their entire fleet is in retreat." She looked at Reed with new respect. "The Thunderbolt is being reassigned. No more reconnaissance. From now on, you're our secret weapon." As the crew celebrated their new status, Engineer Stone approached Reed privately. "Captain, there's something you should see," he said, his voice troubled. "I've been monitoring the ship's systems, and there's something strange happening. The ship isn't just changing physically. It's becoming more aware." "I know," Reed admitted. "I can feel it." "That's not normal, sir," Stone insisted. "A ship shouldn't have a mind of its own, and it shouldn't be able to connect with a human that way. Whatever happened in that nebula, I don't think we understand even half of it yet." Reed nodded, but he wasn't afraid. The presence in his mind felt right somehow. Together, they were becoming something new, something that might just be powerful enough to change the course of the war. "Let's keep this between us for now," Reed told Stone. "The ship chose us. I think we should trust it." As if in response, the lights of the Thunderbolt flickered briefly, and Reed felt a wave of agreement flow through his mind. Their journey was just beginning. Captain Reed woke with a jolt, his heart racing. The dream had been so real. He was fighting a battle he'd never fought, commanding the Thunderbolt against an enemy fleet near a planet he didn't recognize. People he'd never met were on his bridge, calling him captain. They had died, all of them, as the ship exploded around him. Yet here he was, in his quarters on the very same ship, which was running perfectly. It was the third such dream this week. Each one showed him serving on the Thunderbolt, but in missions that never happened, with crew members who didn't exist. The ship's presence brushed against his mind, concerned. "I'm fine," he muttered. "Just dreams." But they weren't just dreams, and he knew it. "You look terrible," Wilson commented when Reed arrived on the bridge. The science officer was running tests on a console, recording the strange energy patterns that now flowed through the ship's systems. Bad dreams, Reed replied. Have you made any progress? Wilson nodded excitedly. I have a theory about what happened to us in the nebula. He pulled up a diagram on the main screen. The Schrödinger cloud isn't just a nebula. It's a region where the barriers between parallel universes are thin. Reed stared at the complex display. Parallel universes, like in science fiction. Exactly like that, except it's real, Wilson continued. Quantum physics has theorized their existence for centuries. When we entered the cloud, the thunderbolt was caught in what I'm calling a reality storm, a place where multiple versions of our reality overlapped. Reed felt a chill. Are you saying this isn't our original ship? Not exactly. Wilson looked uncomfortable. I think our ship merged with versions of itself from other realities. That's why it can phase between dimensions now. And those other realities. He hesitated. What about them? Reed pressed. In most of them, humanity lost the war against the Dominion. Completely. The versions of the Thunderbolt that merged with ours carried the memories of those defeats and the determination to prevent it happening again. Reed thought about his dreams. That would explain why I'm seeing battles we never fought, crew members I've never met. The ship's consciousness is sharing its memories with you, Wilson confirmed. Captain, this is unprecedented. The Thunderbolt isn't just a ship anymore. It's a composite entity carrying the experiences of countless versions of itself across multiple dimensions. The implications were staggering. No wonder the ship seemed so intent on defeating the Dominion. It had witnessed humanity's extinction many times over. Admiral Gray called Reed to her office the next day. Her expression was grim. The top brass is asking questions about the Thunderbolt, she said without preamble. Your success rate is impossible for an outdated frigate. Some are suggesting experimental technology. Others, she paused. Others are suggesting something less conventional. Reed kept his face neutral. What do you think, Admiral? I think you're winning battles we desperately need to win, she replied. But I've been ordered to send the Thunderbolt for analysis. A team of scientists will board tomorrow to study whatever modifications you've made. And if we refuse? Gray raised an eyebrow. That would confirm their suspicions that something unusual is happening. Don't make this difficult, Reed. It's just a routine examination. But as Reed left the office, he knew it was anything but routine. The ship knew it too. Its presence in his mind was agitated, almost afraid. They can't take apart the ship, Stone argued when Reed informed the senior crew. We don't even understand what's happened to it ourselves. What if they try to separate you from the ship? Turner asked. That connection you have, it's getting stronger, isn't it? Reed nodded. The bond between him and the Thunderbolt deepened with each passing day. He could now sense the ship's systems as if they were extensions of his own body. When he gave orders, the ship sometimes responded before he spoke them aloud. We need to stall, Morris suggested. Maybe we can convince them the ship's abilities are just clever tactics, not anything supernatural. Wilson shook his head. Any serious analysis will reveal the quantum phase signature. They'll know immediately that the ship isn't fully in our dimension anymore. Reed made his decision. We'll cooperate, to a point. Let them come aboard and run their tests. But if they try to take the ship apart or separate us, we leave. Disobey direct orders? Turner asked, though he didn't sound opposed to the idea. To protect the ship? Yes. Reed felt the Thunderbolt's approval flow through his mind. The scientists arrived the next morning, 10 of them, led by a stern woman named Dr. Bell. They brought crates of equipment and immediately began scanning the ship's hull. Fascinating, Dr. Bell murmured as her instruments displayed readings. The molecular structure is fluctuating. I've never seen anything like it. Reed watched tensely as they moved through the ship, taking samples, recording data. The Thunderbolt's presence in his mind grew increasingly distressed as the examination continued. We'll need to run some tests on the primary systems, Dr. Bell informed Reed. That will require powering down the main computer core. Reed felt a spike of panic, not his own, but the ship's. That won't be possible, he said firmly. We need to maintain combat readiness. Dr. Bell's eyes narrowed. These orders come from Fleet Command, Captain. The tests will proceed. When the scientists entered the engine room and began disconnecting power couplings, the ship reacted. Lights flickered throughout the Thunderbolt, and a low hum built up in the walls. What's happening? One of the scientists asked nervously. Everyone out, Reed ordered. Now. The scientists ignored him, continuing their work. Dr. Bell approached the main computer core with a scanning device. As she reached for the access panel, all hell broke loose. The Thunderbolt phased, its structure becoming partially transparent. Equipment fell through suddenly insubstantial tables. The scientists cried out in alarm as the floor beneath them wavered. Emergency alarms blared. Get to the shuttle, Dr. Bell shouted, abandoning her equipment. Reed felt the ship's rage and fear as the scientists fled. The Thunderbolt phased completely out of normal space for 3 seconds, long enough for the docking clamps holding it to the station to pass through its hull. Then it reappeared, free and untethered. Sir, we're drifting away from the station, Morris reported. Take us out of here, Reed ordered. Full power to engines. As the Thunderbolt accelerated away from the station, Admiral Gray's voice came over the comm system. Thunderbolt, return to dock immediately. That's an order, Captain Reed. Reed closed the channel without responding. He knew there was no going back now. As they outran the pursuing ships sent to intercept them, the crew gathered on the bridge to consider their options. We're fugitives now, Turner stated bluntly. They'll court-martial all of us. If they catch us, Morris added. Reed looked at each of them. I won't hold any of you to this. When we reach the outer colonies, anyone who wants to leave can go. No one moved. Stone spoke for all of them. This ship chose us, Captain. All of us. We're not going anywhere. Reed felt the Thunderbolt's gratitude wash over him. But alongside it was something new, a warning. Images flashed through his mind. A Dominion commander unlike any they'd encountered before, ships equipped with devices designed specifically to detect phased objects. They're coming for us, Reed said quietly. The Dominion has created technology to counter the Thunderbolt. They're sending their best commander to hunt us down. Wilson looked troubled. How could they develop countermeasures so quickly? Unless they've encountered ships like ours before, Reed finished. The thought was disturbing. If the Dominion knew about phase technology, about parallel universes, what else did they know? The Thunderbolt hummed around them, its systems preparing for the greatest challenge yet. In Reed's mind, the ship shared one clear thought. They would face this enemy together, not just for their own survival, but for humanity's future across all possible realities. They're tracking us, Turner announced, his eyes fixed on the sensor display. 3 Dominion warships had appeared at the edge of their scanner range, moving with purpose directly toward the Thunderbolt. Reed frowned. They had phased the ship, making it invisible to normal sensors. Yet somehow, the enemy had found them. Wilson, how is this possible? Reed asked. The science officer studied his readings. They must have developed some kind of phase detection technology. They're using specialized sensors that can detect the quantum disturbances we create. In Reed's mind, the Thunderbolt shared his concern. The ship had grown stronger over the past weeks, able to phase more completely and for longer periods. But if the Dominion could track them anyway, their main advantage was gone. Change course, Reed ordered. Let's see if we can lose them. For 3 days, they played a dangerous game of hide and seek through the outer solar system. Each time they thought they'd escaped, the Dominion ships would appear again, closer than before. More enemy vessels joined the hunt until they were being pursued by a fleet of 12 ships. They're hurting us, Reed realized as they changed course for the 5th time, only to find another group of Dominion ships waiting ahead. driving us exactly where they want us to go. Morris looked up from the navigation controls. But where? We still have multiple escape routes. Reed closed his eyes, connecting more deeply with the ship. Together, they examined the pattern of enemy movements. The Thunderbolt shared Reed's realization. They were being driven toward a specific region of space. "It's a trap," Reed said, opening his eyes. "And we're going to spring it." Commander Drax stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship, a tall, imposing figure with pale skin and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. His reputation as the most brilliant tactical mind in the Dominion fleet was well earned. Now he was focused on one target, the human ghost ship that had been causing so much damage. "The human vessel continues on the projected course," his second-in-command reported. "They will reach the containment zone in 20 minutes. Drac nodded, pleased. "Activate the phase lock emitters on all ships. Position them according to pattern Alpha. When the human ship enters the zone, they will find that their tricks no longer work." Reed knew they were heading into danger, but he also knew running wasn't an option anymore. The Thunderbolt shared his determination. Better to face the trap head-on and try to break through than be caught from behind. "All hands to battle stations," Reed ordered. "Stone, give me everything the engines have. Wilson, monitor the phase state carefully. If they have a way to disrupt it, we need to know immediately." The Thunderbolt accelerated, pushing deeper into the region where the Dominion fleet waited. On the view screen, space ahead seemed empty, but Reed could feel the ship's awareness of hidden threats all around them. "I'm detecting strange energy readings," Wilson reported. "They're all around us, but I can't pinpoint the source." Suddenly, ships appeared on all sides, 20 Dominion warships arranged in a perfect sphere around them. They had been there all along, cloaked by some technology the Thunderbolt couldn't detect. "It's an ambush," Turner said, stating the obvious. Before Reed could order evasive action, the Dominion ships activated their weapons, but instead of firing, they projected beams of strange, pulsing energy that connected, forming a web around the Thunderbolt. "What are they doing?" Morris asked. Reed felt a surge of pain from the ship's consciousness. "They're attacking our phase state," he gasped, "forcing us to stay solid." As if to confirm his words, the Thunderbolt flickered, its hull solidifying completely. The ghostly shimmer that had become normal vanished. "We've lost our phase ability," Wilson confirmed, his voice tight with worry. "Those energy beams are generating some kind of harmonic frequency that's stabilizing our molecular structure." On the main screen, a new Dominion ship appeared, larger than the others, its hull marked with symbols of high command. A communication request came through. "Should I open the channel?" Turner asked. Reed nodded. The screen changed to show Commander Drax's face. "Captain Reed," Drax said, his voice surprisingly pleasant. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your ship has caused quite a stir in our fleet." "You seem to know a lot about us," Reed replied carefully. Drax smiled. "More than you might think. We've been studying dimensional phase technology for decades. Your ship's condition is particularly interesting to us." "A fortunate accident, I assume." Reed didn't answer. He was busy communicating silently with the Thunderbolt, searching for a way out of their trap. "No matter," Drax continued. "The technology will be ours to study once we capture your vessel. I suggest you surrender. It would be a shame to destroy such a unique specimen." Reed ended the communication without replying. "Options?" he asked his crew. Stone's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we could try overloading the phase drive. It might disrupt their containment field long enough for us to escape, or it might tear the ship apart," Wilson warned. The phase drive wasn't designed for that kind of power surge. Reed felt the Thunderbolt's thoughts. It was willing to take the risk. "Do it," he ordered. As Stone began the overload sequence, the Dominion ships opened fire with conventional weapons. Without its phase ability, the Thunderbolt was hit repeatedly. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "Hull breach on Deck 3," Turner reported. Shields failing. Phase drive approaching critical levels. Stone called out. 10 seconds to overload. Reed gripped his command chair. Brace for impact. The phase drive overloaded with a blast of energy that rippled through the ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Dominion energy web flickered. Now, Reed shouted, full power to engines. The Thunderbolt surged forward, aiming for a gap in the Dominion formation. But the web stabilized again before they could break through. They were still trapped. The overload wasn't strong enough, Wilson said, despair in his voice. Reed felt the ship's consciousness pressing against his mind more intensely than ever before. Images flashed through his thoughts, thousands of versions of the Thunderbolt across countless realities. In most of them, this moment ended in defeat, but in a few, a different approach worked. They're not trying to contain our phase ability, Reed realized suddenly. They're trying to contain us in this reality. What does that mean? Morris asked. It means we don't try to break out, Reed explained. We break in, full power to the phase drive. We're going to pull their entire fleet into the phase boundary with us. Wilson looked alarmed. Captain, if we phase that deeply while under attack, the ship could disintegrate across multiple dimensions. We'd be scattered through reality itself. It's our only chance, Reed insisted. He felt the Thunderbolt agree. A ship had seen this work before, in some other timeline. Redirecting all power to the phase drive, Stone acknowledged. But Captain, it's already badly damaged. This could be a one-way trip. As the Dominion ships closed in for the kill, the Thunderbolt began to shimmer again. But this time, instead of phasing out of reality, it seemed to be pulling reality in around itself. The space around the ship warped and twisted. Commander Drac, watching from his flagship, realized too late what was happening. Fall back, he ordered. Break formation. But it was too late. The Thunderbolt created a phase field so powerful it pulled in everything nearby. The Dominion ships closest to it began to flicker and distort. Their crews watched in horror as their solid surroundings became transparent, then solid again, pulsing between states. On the Thunderbolt's bridge, reality itself seemed to bend. The view screen showed impossible images, overlapping versions of space, stars that shifted positions with each heartbeat. We're crossing the boundary, Wilson shouted over the noise of straining systems. We're entering the phase dimension itself. The last thing Reed saw before consciousness slipped away was the Dominion fleet, trapped in the phase field, being pulled along with them into a realm between worlds, a ghostly dimension where the normal rules of reality no longer applied. The ghost thunderclash had begun. Reed opened his eyes to a world of shadows and light. The bridge of the Thunderbolt looked both familiar and strange. Solid objects had a misty quality, with faint glowing outlines. Outside the viewports, space itself had changed. Stars were smeared across the darkness like paint, leaving trails of light as they moved. Is everyone all right? Reed asked, his voice sounding oddly distant to his own ears. The crew responded slowly, dazed by the transition. Wilson was the first to recover, already checking his instruments. Captain, we've done it, the science officer reported with awe in his voice. We've entered the phase dimension completely. We exist between realities now. Reed felt the Thunderbolt's consciousness merge more fully with his own. In this place, the ship was stronger than ever. It understood this realm in ways Reed could barely comprehend. The Dominion fleet? He asked. Turner checked the sensors. They came through with us. 20 ships, all showing signs of damage from the transition. They're regrouping about 10,000 kilometers away. On the main screen, they could see the Dominion vessels. Like the Thunderbolt, they had a ghostly quality here, but they seemed less stable, flickering erratically between states of solidity. They don't belong here, Reed realized. Not like we do. The Thunderbolt shared its knowledge with him. This place, the phase dimension, operated by different rules. Matter could be shaped by will. Energy flowed in patterns influenced by thought. And the Thunderbolt, having merged with versions of itself from countless realities, was naturally attuned to this environment. "We have an advantage," Reed told his crew. "The ship knows this place. We can fight them here on our terms." As if to demonstrate, the Thunderbolt created 3 phantom copies of itself that spread out around the bridge. The copies weren't solid, even by the standards of this realm, but they looked real enough to confuse enemy sensors. "How is it doing that?" Morris asked in amazement. "It's like dreaming," Reed tried to explain. "In this place, thoughts can take physical form." Commander Drax's voice came through the communication system, distorted but recognizable. "Captain Reed, you've made a grave mistake bringing us here. Did you think we wouldn't prepare for this possibility?" The lead Dominion ship fired a strange weapon, not a conventional energy beam, but a ripple that distorted the fabric of the phase dimension itself. When it struck one of the phantom copies of the Thunderbolt, the copy dissolved into particles of light. "They have weapons designed for this realm," Turner warned. Reed nodded. "So do we." At his thought, the Thunderbolt's weapons activated, but they worked differently here. Instead of energy blasts, they fired concentrated beams of reality, momentarily forcing normal physics on whatever they hit. When these beams struck a Dominion ship, sections of its hull became fully solid, creating stress points where the solid matter met the phase matter. 2 smaller Dominion vessels broke apart under this strain, their pieces scattering across the phase dimension like dissolving dreams. What followed was unlike any battle in normal space. Ships moved in impossible ways, appearing and disappearing, creating phantom copies, firing weapons that bent reality itself. The crews of the Dominion ships were clearly struggling to adapt to this environment, while the Thunderbolt, guided by Reed's connection with it, moved with natural grace. "They can't match us here," Stone observed as another enemy ship broke apart under their attack. Reed wasn't celebrating yet. He could sense something happening on Drax's flagship, a power buildup unlike anything they'd encountered before. "They're preparing something big," he warned. Wilson, analysis. The science officer studied his readings with growing alarm. "They're creating some kind of phase collapse. If they succeed, it could tear a hole in this dimension large enough to pull everything nearby back into normal space, but the transition would be catastrophic. They're willing to destroy themselves to take us with them," Reed realized. The Thunderbolt shared its concern. Such a collapse could do more than destroy them. It could damage the barriers between realities, potentially affecting countless worlds across the multiverse. Reed made a difficult decision. "Cease fire. Open a channel to Commander Drax." When Drax's face appeared on screen, Reed could see the strain the phase dimension was putting on him. The commander's features occasionally blurred, as if he was existing in multiple states at once. "Ready to surrender, Captain?" Drax asked, his voice unsteady. "Ready to talk," Reed countered. "What you're planning won't just kill us, it could damage reality itself. There has to be another way." Drax's expression showed surprise. "You care about the multiverse. Interesting. Most humans can barely comprehend the existence of other dimensions, let alone feel responsibility toward them." "I've seen other realities," Reed said. "My ship has shown me what happens when barriers break down. Neither of us wants that." For a long moment, Drax considered him. "Then, perhaps we have misjudged your species, or at least, misjudged you, Captain Reed. Why did you attack Earth in the first place?" Reed asked. "What threat could we possibly pose to the Dominion?" "Not what you are, but what you will become," Drax explained. "Our predictive algorithms showed that humans would eventually develop phase technology, exactly what your ship now represents, and use it to expand across realities. The potential for damage to the multiverse was unacceptable." Reed understood then. The Dominion hadn't attacked out of hatred or desire for conquest. They genuinely believed they were protecting reality itself. "What if we worked together?" Reed suggested. "Find a way to safely use this technology, establish rules, boundaries. A treaty? Here, between dimensions. Drax seemed both skeptical and intrigued. Reed felt the thunderbolt encouraging him. The ship had seen countless wars across countless realities. It had grown tired of destruction. "We're already breaking all the rules," Reed pointed out. "Why not break one more and make peace in a place no one thought possible?" After what seemed like an eternity, Drax nodded. "Power down your reality weapons. We will do the same. Then we can discuss terms for returning to normal space together." When the Thunderbolt and the remaining Dominion ships emerged from the phased dimension 3 days later, they found the war had escalated. Human and Dominion fleets were engaged in a massive battle near Earth, with casualties mounting on both sides. Using the Thunderbolt's unique abilities, Reed implemented the plan he and Drax had developed. The Ghost ship phased between the opposing fleets, creating phantom copies of itself that surrounded both human and Dominion command ships. Then, simultaneously, they transmitted the treaty terms Drax and Reed had negotiated, along with evidence of the true dangers that uncontrolled phase technology posed to all realities. It took months of difficult negotiations, but eventually both sides agreed to peace. The terms included strict controls on dimensional research and a joint council to monitor any development of phase technology. The Thunderbolt was not dismantled or studied as Reed had once feared. Instead, it was recognized as a unique entity, neither fully ship nor fully sentient being, but something in between. Reed remained its captain, though the connection between them had grown so deep that the distinction between human and ship had begun to blur. Together, they took on a new mission, patrolling the boundaries between realities, watching for threats that existed beyond normal space. They became legends, not just in their home reality, but across the multiverse. The Ghost warship and its captain who found a way to end a war by starting a peace in the space between dimensions. Other ships would eventually be developed with limited phase capabilities, but none ever matched the Thunderbolt. None had been forged in a quantum storm, merged with countless versions of itself, bonded with a captain who understood what it meant to exist across multiple realities. In the end, the ship that shouldn't exist had not only changed the rules of the battlefield, it had changed the rules of reality itself.